Tonight we are dedicating an entire episode to the High Republic Light of the Jedi. Don't worry, it's mullet style, review in the front, spoilers in the back. Join us as we discuss the launch of this new and epic storytelling saga on Dyad in the Force. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Dyad in the Force. I'm your host, Element7.
And I am Darth Chaco. And today is super exciting. For the first time, we're actually bringing on two guests, but it's such a monumental occasion because we just got a new book, a new era, a fresh take on Star Wars. So we have both Jay Stoops, Megan, and Sawyerism. We have Sawyer here.
I'm doing good. It's a good day.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Why don't you go ahead and we'll start with Sawyer. Introduce yourself, where we can find you, what type of stuff you make.
I'm Sawyer. My username is Sawyerism on TikTok and on Instagram. And at first, I kind of started on the platform doing memes and such stuff like that. But recently, I've kind of went off the path, and I'm doing a lot of lore, really interesting, really bizarre things about the Star Wars universe that probably you aren't waking up and wondering about. So yeah.
Yeah, Sawyer's training to be a doctor, so if you have any questions on Hutt anatomy,
specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, she's bringing that love to the fandom. And how about you, Jay Stoops?
Well, I am not in any way qualified to be even a doctor in training. So let's just leave that out there. But I make TikToks primarily. That's what I do on the internet. Yeah, and Jay Stoops on TikTok, and it's majority just nerdy ramblings, but I like to sprinkle in feminist film theory and the occasional in-depth analysis on media.
I love it. And you have single-handedly pushed me into watching Lord of the Rings for the very first time. Never seen it before. So I will be watching and documenting my reactions. Obviously, I've seen the memes, but I don't know what they mean. I mean, I know one does not simply walk into Mordor, but
that is the most important thing. I gotta say, I'm gonna be very anxiously awaiting your reactions because the Lord of the Rings is my major obsession. So
if I don't post, I will have chosen violence.
Yes,
yeah?
that's exactly it.
You also have to commit to the extended versions of each one, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was about to start, and I looked, and I was like, 3 hours and 45 minutes? Okay, I can't start this now.
If it helps, I've not seen any of them either.
Oh, you guys can go on a journey together if we can convince you both.
Yes. You guys should live text each other.
You know, it's also funny because the extended versions is what makes me want an extended version for the Star Wars films. Could you imagine having 3 hours of Star Wars? I mean, we get that with Mandalorian, but I'm talking about the films. So it's just an awesome journey to witness for Chaco, and hopefully for Sawyer. We can probably do a movie night.
First cut of Revenge of the Sith was 4 hours long, with the first hour being on the Invisible Hand, which makes sense because that's how the Matthew Stover novelization is. It's really good. Read it.
Okay, so let's get into our discussion on Light of the Jedi. Now, we're going to tell you when we approach spoiler territory, so you're completely fine watching and listening for now, but Megan, give us a start with your impressions of Light of the Jedi as a book.
I was so impressed. Really, I am obviously nowhere near as big of a lore person as you were, Darth Choco, but I've been dipping my toe into the canon books for a while now. I've read a few of them, and this one was it was so different. It was so different and refreshing. I really like the structure, the story formatting, and how it gives you so many different perspectives, and especially because it's introducing you to a time that we don't really know much about. But more so than any of that, it was such an emotional read, honestly. I was so emotionally affected, and it was just so beautiful, and such a different perspective on the Jedi and the Force. and I was hooked immediately. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. It's brand new. You know, this is the first time in a very long time. I've read a lot of Legends. I've read all of canon, and I am in this part where people ask me, do you think this is going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. What does this mean? Yeah. I don't know. There are no answers. It's one of the best times, but I gotta hear, because I have not heard any of Sawyer's thoughts. How did it feel for you?
So this is the second Star Wars book I've read, and the first canon one, and I had just come off reading a very intense book, and I didn't know what to expect, and right off the bat, you know. But yeah, kind of like Megan said, I really like the structure of this. It the way it was, it caught me off guard at so many different points, and there was a lot of new characters to get to know, and an entire different, a different perspective of the Order and the Republic, and I thought that it was all written so beautifully and done in such a way that even the smallest of characters we got to know, which you don't get a lot of the time. And yeah, it was just really refreshing. And I, kind of like you said, I have no idea what's going to go. I've got a lot of questions, but I'm quite excited. I think this was a brilliant way to start a new era of Star Wars.
Absolutely. And, echoing what Chaco said, this blank slate, it gives us like this interesting dynamic for Star Wars, because this is the first time in the history of Star Wars being a fan, besides being the first ones to watch the original Star Wars back in the day before it was called A New Hope. This is the first time that everyone is on like an equal playing field, in terms of like knowledge and understanding and interpretation. Like, we get comments, ever since I started TikTok, we got comments and questions that I'll be able to answer. And then this is the first time, and I'm sure the same is for Chaco, this is the first time someone's asking a question, and I'm just like, I don't have the answer for you. There's no precedence for this. When we're answering sequel questions, we have precedence with prequels and the shows and the originals. And for this one, this is the earliest in the timeline, so it's more so than it is a new story. It is the earliest story that we have in canon, so it's more difficult to answer those questions. I think the most interesting thing about this book is how holistic it was, and that's most probably an echo of Sawyer's and Megan's thoughts on the structure of the book. Like, we're so used to the Skywalker saga. We're so used to it being about one family and then the characters ancillary to that family. But, you go into this book having read some of the stuff that they released previously prior to its launch, and you're like, oh, it's about Avar Kriss. It's not. It's so much more about the holistic
Yagaberry.
Oh man, are you gonna be the president of the Buriyaga Agaburi Fanaduri Clubbery?
We're trying to figure out the best name for his fan club, and I think that's it. Yeah,
that pretty much nailed it.
I got an amazing, or I read an amazing comment today. That does this mean that Chewbacca's full name is Chewbacca Bakachu?
God, I hope not.
Who was it? Was it you that was talking about the names in Legends, like Lobaka, and
yeah, the Wookiee names in Legends were terrible, because they were all like, okay, Chewbacca, he has a nephew named Lobaka, which is like someone was ordering chow mein and was like, oh, actually I want lo mein, and like that's where they got the difference. That's really what I really believe that's what happened. And then like Chewbacca was married to Machubak. I'm like, come on, guys! Like, you didn't. Yeah. So having Yagaberry to be there and just, hello everybody.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I thought that George Lucas naming TIE fighters after bow ties would seem impressive, but your theory on naming Wookiees makes George Lucas's naming system seem pretty legit. in retrospect.
So like the overall feel of this book, how would you guys rank this in your canon books? And specifically Sawyer, I want to start with you since this is your first canon book. How does this make you feel? What is your impression moving forward? Maybe making you think you want to read a lot more canon or stay on this High Republic track? What's going on with you?
I mean, we've already spoken about this a bit, and I got off on the wrong foot by starting with Legends right before this book came out. So I think in my mind, I'm like, I gotta go back to the Old Republic. But no, I mean, I want to read everything. Like both of the books that I've read in the past week was so different, but so enthralling in their own way. And so, I've become completely convinced that every single story, whether it be Legends or canon, is just as amazing. I've kind of I never really considered the fact that these books had the same gripping ability that the films and television shows did. But with both Light of the Jedi and Revan, I could see everything, like I was watching a film, and I've never really had an experience like that with a book before. So yeah, I'm gonna read everything.
I'm the one guy who's like, books are the best part of Star Wars. It's beyond the movies because there's no limits, and so hopefully you'll become one of us.
You single-handedly convinced me to read books, so.
And also, I mean, I get really excited whenever I hear anyone is jumping into any sort of either canon or Legends books. But this one, for me, having read a lot of them, this ranks up there. And the thing I've been loving with canon is that it's been consistently great. You know what I mean? Like the vast majority of the books have been really good. This book is amazing, but I can't say it's my favorite. It's definitely in the top 5, and it was definitely a gripping book, especially considering it starts out with this disaster, which is still not spoilers for the very beginning. They did announce that, but the High Republic came out of the gate strong. Like, I don't know, there must have been a cow walking on my roof because the stakes were never higher. It was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Highly recommend to anyone that is looking. If you have thought, I want to try out reading a book, but I don't know where to start, this is the place to start. Perfect place to start.
I couldn't agree more. Like literally, I had someone ask me the other day exactly that question, where should I start? And I was like, yeah, I'd probably start with Light of the Jedi. Like I think that it's really interesting for us as like longtime Star Wars fans who are so used to that Jedi Council that's so intertwined with the Senate, the corrupted Senate, and seeing them as like this, warrior people during the era of the Clone Wars, that getting this take is just so refreshing. And I'm remembering now that you asked me what my favorite ranking of the books are. And so I'm going to just roll right into that.
Roll in.
I got so into the conversation, I fully forgot what the question was. That's never happened to me before in my life. Yeah, I would say I've read a lot of books that I really love. And I know that I've talked to you guys about how much I love Claudia Gray. Like Master and Apprentice is really up there for me, but I was thinking about it more since I finished it a couple days ago. And I really do think that Light of the Jedi is definitely top 3 for me. It might even be in my top 2. Like I really do love Master and Apprentice, and Lost Stars is great. But yeah, this book was just, it was one of the most emotional reads that I've had. So I think that really bumps it into really high ranking for me, because the other ones were really interesting, especially with characters like original trilogy characters and stuff that I really love seeing. But yeah, this one is really hard hitting in terms of like making you feel things. Absolutely.
For me, it's my favorite canon book. I say that not with a light heart, because I've read so many canon books that I love them all. But one claim to fame this book has, it's the only book that has made me cry twice. And as you were saying, it's an emotional read. Yeah, I've read so many canon books where it got so emotional because I was so invested with those characters already. But what I found the most interesting about this book is being so attached and invested in the characters that I never even had any relationship with to begin with. You know, this is your first time hearing about these characters, and I do remember when we were speaking about it earlier, how even invested you were with Hedda Cassett in the beginning of the book, and we won't spoil it. We're gonna get into spoilers here soon, but just the overall strength of characters in this book is incredible, and I'm a lore and a character-driven kind of guy, and that's why it's my favorite. And I'm ashamed that Chaco, it's not him. I'm just kidding.
One thing I will say though is that in this book, and because I'm also a extremely character driven and lore driven, and you know that's what I love. That's my bread and butter. And every single character was approached with love, even if they're only going to be in here for a minute. Even if they aren't amongst this, it's not even about them. That character was fully fleshed out. I have no doubt in my mind that they had written backstories and they knew what the goals and hopes and dreams of all of these characters are, regardless of the size of it. And it really shines through in the writing of this. And it was just, like I keep saying, refreshing, but it was quite refreshing.
I mean, I was so impressed with that. I mean, I was talking about this with another person who's in the book club yesterday, I think. And I was talking to her about that because, you know, it took, 3 pages to get invested in any particular character with only a few choice words about their life. And I was just amazed by that. And I was also kind of frustrated in a way because I was like, gosh, I keep falling for it every time. And she was like, well, I don't think so. I don't feel that way. And I'm like, how could you not? Like, every single character in this book, you just feel some kind of attachment to. And it just kind of blew my mind because that's something we don't really have an opportunity to do in the films. Like, you know, we don't get to know what that random admiral over there is thinking. Like, I don't know. I loved it.
And it goes in tandem with how Chaco views books being the best part of Star Wars, because you get such an insight into their inner dialogue and what they're thinking about. Knowing what Palpatine is thinking when he's talking to Rey and he's espousing about the prophecy of the Dyad, when you read that novelization, is incredible. And an interesting point that Chaco brings up is how they most probably have, or if not, they have already written the backstory for a lot of these characters, no matter how small. That's something we're used to seeing in visual dictionaries. And now we have it in the books, where it's just straight up the smallest character who's in a cantina who has a crush on someone, on Hetzal, you know, is getting his just desserts. And it's an amazing book. I can't stress that enough. If you are on the fence, and if you've ever asked the question, I want to get into the books, where do I start? This is my number one recommendation, simply because it's the earliest time period and it is a blank slate. You don't need to know anything about Star Wars just to read this book. It's going to gradually suck you in. How about you guys? Would you say this is your new recommendation for getting into Star Wars books?
I guess I would just, I'm thinking about, you know, all the conversations I have with people in this fandom, and especially on TikTok, and how critical people are these days of what's going on with Star Wars. And I think that this, you know, I think a lot of people probably have just already decided, like, I'm not going to read that. And I just, I don't think I could find a better place. Even though I haven't read the other canon books, I don't think there's a better place to start, because this is new and different, and, you know, there's not a lot of this book. You know, there are references to things, but, you know, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I absolutely would tell someone to start there, even before they even watch the films, because it is the beginning of canon. And it's just such a refreshing read. And if you have these I myself had pretty negative connotations with the Jedi based on what we know about them in some of the films, and that has completely gone away because of what we get from the Jedi Order in this book. And yeah, absolutely, I would totally tell people to start there. It's a very positive entry into Star Wars, I think. For me,
I mean, this is a little bit where the our dyad diverges. This is a phenomenal entry point. It absolutely is. I still take to asking people, hey, what do you like about Star Wars first? And if someone tells me, oh, I like the original trilogy, Lost Stars, read Lost Stars. Oh, I love the prequel trilogy, read Master and Apprentice. You can, I like the sequels, read Bloodline. Yes, all those are Claudia Gray books. I know. They're great. But like, oh, I really love Ahsoka. Like, there's the Ahsoka book. If you love Clone Wars, specifically Dark Disciple. But if you're like, I can't choose, I love it all, start here. Any one of those recontextualizes that property. So the next time you rewatch it, you'll watch it with new eyes, and things will just be better, right, and more vivid for you.
Yeah.
But if you just like all of it and you read Light of the Jedi, it recontextualizes the Force. It recontextualizes the Jedi, Star Wars itself, the Republic. Like, so this has that ability, but it's the 10,000 foot view version of it. Phenomenal place to start, but I always have to ask the question first.
I think it's a great starting point. I definitely, for me, as someone who like is very particular about books, I don't even know that I would ask someone like what era they're interested in so much as like what they already like to read. But honestly, I think that for people, especially for maybe people who've never read a Star Wars book, or like people who are maybe big readers, because that's what I was a big reader and a huge Star Wars fan, but I never crossed the two over, because it just, as someone who fell in love with the films, it never even occurred to me like I should read the books, like especially before they had the Disney canon. Like I met a few people in my youth at conventions and stuff who were kind of gatekeepery about that kind of like lore information, and it really just turned me off. I was like, oh, I don't even want to get in with these people.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. But now, like having done all of this, reading and looking into it, I do think that you can't really go wrong. I think that my typical advice to people is, Google them and see what plot appeals to you the most. That's typically like my go-to advice to people with a lot of things, is like that's how I am with books. I know that's how a lot of people are. Like, if you really want to get into Star Wars books and you haven't before, like it's quickly, easily Googleable, like what are the best books, and like just pick what topic appeals to you. But if you're too lazy to do that, which I have been on many, many things, I would say you really cannot go wrong with starting with Light of the Jedi. It's such a blank slate for everything that you, especially because it's like the Star Wars stuff at this point is kind of like comic books, where it's like there's just so much material that it's really intimidating for people to even think about getting into. And this reminds me of like when DC did the New 52, or when Marvel did their Ultimate line, which it's Ultimate, right? I'm blanking on.
No, they did Ultimate, and they like condensed stories.
Okay, yeah. I was like, it's a U word.
And then they absorbed the Ultimate.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So it reminds me of that, like when they're just kind of like giving a new audience like a fresh starting point, so that they don't have to worry about that like intimidating mass of existing lore.
That's actually a great point, because that's how I kind of navigated Legends back then. There was so much Old Republic and New Jedi Order stuff to do, and I would read the synopsis on the back and see, oh, is Satele Shan in this? And obviously I did read some books that didn't have her, but it was a huge contributing factor to that.
I mean, that's me with Jaina.
Yes, exactly.
No, that's me with Jaina Solo, but I think that's one of the strengths here, is that and people, I know I may get lynched for this, but I think the quality of these canon books is just plain higher. They've taken a lot of the greatest writers from Legends and brought them over. Before, Jaina Solo is my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Hard stop. I freaking love Jaina Solo. But she has like 30 to 40 books. You know what I mean? So it's more... Legends was more episodic, where you could follow a character for a long time, and even if the stories were subpar or the writing was subpar, you're still in it, right? You're still following the same character. This book made me love just randos in this universe.
Yeah,
like that's never happened. Like, and that's one of the strengths that I'm seeing here.
I think this book, above all else, really showed me how big this galaxy is by doing that, by making all of these random characters from all these different places and all these different species. I think that's one of the best things about this book. Is it's a fresh start, yes, but it also, I think, is a great proper introduction to what the galaxy really was. So yeah, that was just a thought I wanted to add.
Yeah, so quick aside before we get into our in-depth book discussion, I have a quick aside for Chaco. Do you think it's not your top canon book because that place is kind of being, held by a placeholder that has Claudia Gray's name on it?
It's like one of those kids' toys. There's a Claudia Gray shaped hole, and like this book just won't fit through it. I would say no. However, the next book is a Claudia Gray book, so if that becomes my favorite, I will fully admit just bias. Because I'm interested in learning more about myself. If I have that bias, I apologize. Hopefully not. I actually plan to revisit, and I am legitimately, I know we had mentioned this briefly in the past, I'm legitimately going to get a board, and I'm going to cut out strips of paper, and it's going to be just like Top Gear when you do a lap around the track, when I'll be like, okay, where does this one fit? This pushes these ones down. And I'm going to revisit my favorite book, which is Tarkin by James Luceno, and make sure it's still up there. I might just be holding on.
Have you reevaluated your favorite books since then? Or recently?
I've read Tarkin 3 times, but I will read it again because I have not read that book in 2 or 3 years, and I've read a lot of other ones since then. So, I'm gonna go back and redo all of them, mostly so I can make YouTube content.
Yeah, I'll admit I have a certain degree of Claudia Gray bias, and I am fully prepared to have this book ousted when it comes out. Not ousted. It's probably going to be number 2, but I think for now, Light of the Jedi is my top canon book. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the book. This is spoiler territory. If you have not read Light of the Jedi, go read it. Take a couple hours and then come right back and finish this podcast. So part 1, the Great Disaster. We've been hinting at this for the longest time. This book starts off incredibly dark. They encounter a mass shadow in the hyperlanes, which is impossible according to what they know about hyperspace travel. And it causes this disaster where the Legacy Run breaks apart, and its compartments and various pieces have come out of hyperspace, and they're hurtling towards the Hetzel system.
Imagine there is, right, so this is 200 years before Phantom Menace, right? So like in the United States term, right, this is like just after the founding of this country. Imagine like it's Western days. This is a train that's going through hyperspace, and it comes off the rails, and but this is hyperspace. So this disaster are these compartments, there's things, and they're falling out of hyperspace, which means they're going pretty fast. And it's disaster ensues for the start of this book. I can't wait to jump into it. But Megan, how did it hit you?
That's such a good analogy, because literally this book gives such like Wild West vibes, and I had never thought of it that way before, but that is so true. It is like a runaway train off the rails in the Wild West. Like cracking this book open, I was not prepared. Like the cover is so shiny, happy, and bright, and all of the concept art, look at it. Like, it was literally like, this is gonna be such a great time. The Jedi are basically like a bunch of hippies preaching peace and
gold
like
trim.
Exactly. Like teaching each other the, magic kumbaya. And then we start off this book and it just hits you like a ton of bricks. Like I was emotionally distraught in the first 10 pages. My girl Hedda, I tell you, I know that I have mentioned her to you guys before, but I was so ready for Hedda to be like, oh, my girl. I was like, yes, this is incredible. I love you. You're amazing. Keep doing you. And like her immediate sacrifice and like being in her head for it again. Like, I know Darth Joko talks about this with books a lot, but like being able to like hear her valor in her head, like her last thoughts, thinking about hoping that the others got to safety before she had to close the doors, and mourning people who didn't, like as she knows she's about to be like obliterated. My girl Hedda, oh my God, like rest in peace.
I didn't cry, but you saying that made my eyes water just now.
Like I started off this book not in a healthy place. Like 5 pages in, I was like, wow, okay. But it was, God, I mean, and getting to jump around perspectives like that right off the bat, I do feel like it really gave you a good idea of like the world that we're in. Like it does give you like Wild West vibes and like all these people on their own in this big galaxy where they're just like figuring stuff out. It's a nice place to give your audience like an idea of the setting, especially coming from our timeline in Star Wars that we're all familiar with.
Just thinking about Hedda and her interaction with the little boy before this happened, and then she's there in the front like trying to navigate around and save everyone like a boss, but like at the last moment just like I hope they were able to make it back to their parents. And I'm like, no, no, don't do that to me. I didn't cry during the book, but I'm close right now. But sorry, how did it hit you?
Oh my God. Okay, this is going to be completely sacrilegious, but when I read that first chapter, I was like, this is not Star Wars, this is Star Trek. Like that is sound. It just felt like the opening to a Star Trek film where some great disaster happens, and like I don't know, oh my God. And I am terrified of boats. I did not realize that I'd be terrified of spaceships. So it completely caught me off guard. I had just come off this equally dark book that I had read, Revan, but in a completely different way. But that book had opened me to this idea that Star Wars can be scary, and that's exactly what happened when I started this book. And I had just kind of like, I had come off of, I just was taking a quick break at work, and I was like, okay, I'll just read the first chapter, dip my toes in, and then revisit it like after my shift, whatever. And that I was just thinking, okay, you're just gonna get an introduction to some characters, whatever. I was not expecting that disaster, and it was just a brief intro to what was to come in the entire first part, but no, absolute like genuine terror like overwhelmed me just in those first like 5 pages. But I mean, what a way to open a book. I mean, what a way to make someone like want to keep reading. Wow. And the other thought that I had was like, okay, so Star Wars is definitely not for children. Don't let anyone tell you that. I was just devastated. I also made that connection. I mean, it to Hedda, but also to all the other characters that we like, the kid who wanted to go ask the girl at the bar out and all of that stuff. Like every single time it was, developing this deeply personal connection to someone, and then bye. And I fell for it every single time, and I was supposed to. That's how it was written, but ugh.
The beginning of this book is truly like a high and low, because it doesn't keep you in that dark space for long. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Chaco, get this conversation started about the anime moment, the classic anime moment where the rescue happens, and we got that first line in the book. This is Jedi Master Avar Kriss. We are here to help. Oh God! Oh, shivers!
Ooh. Yeah. Oh man! Like it was wonderful. I mean, I do apologize. Before I jump into that, I have to touch on the guy that was thinking about asking out the girl at the bar, yeah. And because I've been that guy of like, yes, I've had a whole bunch of interactions, and she's basically been giving me the green light like for a long time, but like I still don't know, like, should I do it, should I not do it? And like you're having troubles at work, you're having troubles with your boss, and this happens. And just like I said before, like everyone's hopes and dreams in this book have been created. So you are in the mind of this guy, and he has these hopes and dreams, and we don't know exactly how old he is, but I've been this guy. To me, he's younger than me, because I've already finished that stuff. But
that makes me think. And I hope I'm not trying to bring us down again, but the three characters that we meet, this bait and switch, like, we meet Hedda, we meet this guy thinking about this girl in the bar, and we meet the captain that goes back with the medical droid to program it that we touched on, and then he's ready to make his escape when he senses another life force there and has the droid bring him back so he can stay and program it. And all of these moments are so heartbreaking, but it just made me think, because of the way the book is written, we're in their heads for their very last moments of life. And for all of these characters, except maybe for the guy thinking about the girl, but he knows he's in imminent danger, if not that his life is going to immediately end. We're there for their conscious last thoughts. And all of these characters' last thoughts are beautiful. Hedda her last thought is thinking, I hope that I saved enough of my people. And this guy is thinking, I hope I get the chance to tell that girl how I feel about her. And this doctor's last thought is, we are all the Republic. And it's just, if that doesn't set you up for a book that's going to be emotional about getting your heart ripped out by these characters, I don't know what does. Like literally all three of them had just, you're immediately invested in them, and their last thoughts are just so tragically beautiful, each one of them. I love it and I hate it at the same time.
If it directly forces you to face your own mortality, it's the start of a Star Wars book. But through this darkness there is a beacon of light, a starlight beacon, if you will. But this is Avar Kriss, and we're here to help. We get to finally understand the Jedi. Yoda's line, for 1,000 years, the Jedi have been the protectors, and we get to see exactly what they were supposed to be, what they are meant to be. There is no game, there's no politics involved, there is no we can't come and help you guys because we aren't allowed to come into this system yet. There's none of that stuff. We are in the Team Cap days, not the Team Tony days of the Jedi, and so we get to experience this from, all we are here to do is help. That's all we care about. If there is one person in danger, we will do everything in our power to save that one person. It doesn't matter. And that's the way everything and everyone really should be, but yeah, we really got to see. And then also the Jedi starfighters, which for some reason the name is escaping me,
Vectors.
The coolest ships ever. We get to see a prelude to what feels like battle meditation for the first time in canon, which is dope. We get a brand new understanding of the Force where she's calling it a song and she's listening. But this isn't new. This is Obi-Wan talking to Luke on the Falcon, saying to trust your instincts, to listen to the Force, to feel it guide you. He's not teaching him how to block blaster bolts. He's teaching him how to listen. Well, Avar Kriss hears a symphony, and when there's something missing, she knows that the Force is trying to direct her to that. There's something that's not complete here. It's a whole new light on all of these things, and I am just here for it. I'm here for this ride. I love it so much, and I'm curious, Sawyer, when we get into the first bits of this rescue effort, like what jumped out at you?
I think I did not like Element said, I did not have that like anime moment, because really I was like, how are they going to fix this? Like, we don't know what's going on. How are they going to fix this? And that entire journey was just so fascinating to me, and not just Avar's, her song, but Elzar's ocean and Bel's fire, and just getting to know even the Jedi that we saw for like 2 seconds, so 2 lines, like everybody had a different interpretation of what the Force is and how it guides them and how they see it and feel it. And we got to see, like you said, battle meditation, which I kind of recognized right away because I, have my affinity for Bastila. But that was so exciting, and just the way that the book described that whole process. And I thought the ships were really cool. This idea that you plug in your lightsaber to get the weapons to work, like that was so awesome. And just the sense of teamwork that I don't think that we see in, like, even, the Clone Wars and the prequels. Like, yes, they do, the council convenes and blah, 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 and they send teams to do things, but it wasn't the same as what we read in this first part of this book, and it just felt, you could really, like, for lack of a better phrasing, you could really feel the light side of the Force when you were reading this book, this first part. And it was hard not to just become in a different way attached to all these Jedi. It was almost like they weren't giving you that same level of like emotional attachment, almost intentionally, because they're Jedi, that's not their thing. But I just loved it. And I also liked that not everyone won. The Jedi were there to help as many people as possible, but sometimes they failed, and they handled that beautifully. And you got to see not only we're here, we're going to protect these people, we've got all this under control. Like, no, they're also humans or Twi'leks or whatever sentient species. But and then Variaga's moment in the middle, where he noticed that all the people were in the compartment. And that's something that we can talk about later, especially with Bell, but like seeing into the mind of a Padawan was really fascinating to me, because there was just such a stark contrast between the Jedi Masters and their interpretation of everything, and then Variaga and Bell's interpretation of everything, because they were still learning. They were, they weren't Anakin. They weren't that Padawan that we watched. I thought that, that was one of my favorite parts, was, kind of this introduction to the Padawans and how they viewed the Force so differently from how their masters did. So, yeah.
I definitely got like a jolt of electricity when Avar was like, we're here. Yes. I was caught up in the emotion of the moment, and I had just been, I'd just been crying for the third time already. And then they're like, we're here. And I honestly, if you had asked me in the moment, what do you think the Jedi are going to do to help? I would have been like, oh, that's a good point. But just hearing her voice, like just getting that little beacon it was such a moment. And I really do think that this next sequence in the book is so emblematic of like what I love and what is so fundamentally different about this book, and clearly what they're trying to implement with this era is how different the Jedi are, because we are used to Clone Wars Jedi, going on, peaceful missions that end up with them having to slice and dice and be, their little warrior selves. But this was such a different way to approach a crisis than anything we've seen from the Jedi so far. Just very meditative, very hearkening back to like what we're told the Jedi are supposed to be, but we're never shown they are in the era that we're familiar with. And it was really beautiful. And even like the loss, like through the perspective of Avar, how she's noticing that like not all the Jedi, like it's some of them don't make it, and it's the way that they're able to just like accept the loss, mourn it, but still be so focused and one with the Force was, I think what I always kind of in my mind would have described a Jedi as, but never actually having seen that in any kind of media thus far, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been saying this for a couple of days now. The Jedi of this book, they all give me Qui-Gon Jinn vibes. Like these are what they should have been, these people. And there's one quote I want to read from the book that is just so revealing about how they perceive the Force. And it's, we must begin by believing it is possible to save everyone. If the will of the Force is otherwise, so be it. But I will not accept the idea of abandoning them without trying. So they're very much aware that if it is the will of the Force, everything is as the Force wills it, so be it. But we're still going to act, whereas like in the prequel era, the Jedi were kind of caught up in dogma and caught up in the politics.
Luminara. Luminara.
How was Luminara?
I mean, there's a stark contrast between we will do everything we can to save each and every person, and Luminara of like talking to Anakin in the Clone Wars. Oh yeah, both of our Padawans got buried. I that scene gave me Napoleon Dynamite vibes of like, well, can't find my checkbook. She's just like, all right, well, we gotta go. Like, no, we can do something, anything, and we get Clone Wars season 7 when we find about Trace and Rafa. That was Luminara, in order to save a lot of people that the truck was steered in and killed their parents. They didn't have anything. They had nowhere to go to. They had nowhere to stay and all this stuff. And Luminara was like, may the Force be with them.
Yeah.
Deuces, And it's a stark contrast. Also, I want justice for Mace Windu because he was opposed to treating Anakin like Jesus, but a lot of people give him a bad name. He was the only person that was like, does it bother anyone else that the Republic keeps trying to become part of the Council and all this stuff? Like, he was starkly against it, and he's like, I don't trust that Palpatine dude. He needs to stop what he's doing. Like, I will confront him myself unless you guys have a better idea. Like, so justice for Mace Windu.
Absolutely.
Screw Luminara.
Also, people jumped on it and dragged him for citizen. She said it first. Ahsoka said it first. He was just affirming her choice of words. That's all. But I also like to echo what you guys have been saying about this book. I just kind of like realized it now, is that this book is a constant balance. When we think about the balance in the Force and talk about our interpretations of it, this book is an actual balance, because through the light there is dark, and through the dark there is light all the time. When the Jedi come to the rescue, the Jedi are dying. It's not a full on, rainbow sunshine happy days moment. People fail and die, and it's weird to think that like that balance could be achieved in writing. I don't know, I just realized that, and then we have Bell Zettifar and Loden Greatstorm, who is trying their best to evacuate some people who are being kept out of a ship by, I think, a governor or someone in power on Hetzal. And we have raiders and these guards. And I know that, Megan, you had a lot to say about this moment in particular because of how Loden and Bell like approach the situation. What were your thoughts on this part? I think
this was the first time that we got to see like Loden being such a badass, but in just like such a casual way, like that's what I love about Loden throughout this book, is he literally he's always just kind of like, I mean, whatever happens, but I am stronger than you. Like the way that he treats the guards, like you can tell he doesn't want to hurt anyone, but he wants to make it clear that like, stop, just stop. Like Loden is, I feel like he's the charmer of this book that everyone is going to fall in love with at the end of the day. And Bell and his relationship with Bell and their closeness was also really great. I feel like you don't get to see that kind of Padawan master relationship really ever. And Bell clearly looks up to him, but also there's not this like intimidated respect that I feel like you get with a lot of Padawans, where other than Ahsoka, like most of the Padawans we're introduced to seem very intimidated and like cordial with their masters. But the relationship between Bell and Loden is very casual and friendly, and it reminds me familial more than the modern Jedi, in a way where like you can gently tease each other a little bit, and like Bell seems to be just like a tiny bit frustrated with Loden sometimes.
But when we're back on Coruscant, I'll throw you off the tallest super towers. Maybe you just need more time to commune.
I mean, yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, this was too short. You didn't have enough time.
Exactly.
Just do something higher.
But I love how he's just like blatantly laughing at him when he says it too. Like he's just like it's just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, you'll get it or you won't, but it'll be funny for me either way.
I have these highlighted when Bell says, "This sounds like a wonderful idea, Master," and Loden's like, "I agree." It's just this guy. That's why I cast Idris Elba.
Yes, that's a great pick.
It absolutely great pick, and Loden has actually become one of the people that I want to be, just in general, where there's just always a smile, but like he does mean business. When he means business. To me, he seemed like a cross between Kit Fisto, who always has a smile on his face, and then Mace Windu, where like it's a continuum where Mace is on this side, Kit is on this side, and I'm here for it.
How would you rank him then, along with like your existing Jedi?
Loden?
Yeah.
Whew, he is way up there, and just him, while they're waiting there, and then like raiders start showing up because they're like, we're gonna break in, we're gonna take this thing, and sorry, I'm just thinking of real life parallels of both groups of people trying to prevent people from using the ship, and the people trying to just take it by force, being the same people. but that's a whole side topic. When Loden just lifts all of them up and then pulls away all of their weapons, such a powerful moment. Like,
it's a power move.
It's this. This guy could crush all of us and has been choosing not to. Yeah, he may have a point.
The real question is, does he rank higher than Bar Yaga? Because I know that Bar Yaga's your boy.
Higher than Bar Yaga, lower than Plo Koon, because Plo Koon is my personal space dad.
What if there was like, we got a show and Loden's voice was lower than Plo Koon's?
I think that would unbalance the force with the amount of sexiness. Because there's a good and bad that's like top and bottom, and then sexiness is left and right. We can't. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, someone would have to balance the force.
So he's got that leg up over Plo Koon already.
Ooh, do we have a cheerleader for Twi'leks?
I mean, they do be doing what they do. You saw Return of the Jedi. You know what I mean.
Yeah. I just like his yellow lightsaber. I'm a big fan of the gold lightsaber.
Which is what made me fall in love with Plo Koon to begin with, because I found him through the game Jedi Power Battles, where he had a yellow lightsaber, and I only played him. He was the strongest character. He wasn't very fast. He was very slow. But at that point, I was like, I need a yellow lightsaber myself. So
it's the best one. Yellow lightsaber gang for life.
Let's do it.
Also, in reference to seeing Return of the Jedi, we also saw the Mandalorian and those Twi'lek.
Bib Fortuna is not indicative. Let's not talk about Bib.
Twi'leks don't claim him.
Sawyer, what are your thoughts on this moment from the book?
I mean, it definitely was not my favorite moment between these two. I think that came later in the book itself. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, learning about the way that Bell saw things, as a Padawan, and him having that like kind of disagreement with himself, like, I'm not supposed to be afraid, but I'm afraid, but this battle of, and his concern, like, what does it mean to be a Jedi? Am I good enough? Am I doing this right? Like, and that kind of carries, he does obviously like evolve through the book, but that does kind of carry into part 2 as well. And no, I mean, that in particular was something that I really liked. I love their dynamic as Master and Padawan, but I just thought it was so refreshing to see that point of view, and to have a Padawan who was not, yes, he was questioning what he was being asked to do, but he wasn't meeting it with like resistance as Anakin might have. I don't know. I thought it was such a unique dynamic that we really haven't seen before, and I would say Loden was probably my favorite character in the entire book. So, he was just really cool and like sassy in his own way, and had such a great understanding of the Force. So, yeah.
Just gonna make part 3 discussion quite emotional, huh?
Yeah.
Just a couple of juicy tidbits here. She was pushing, trying to make the Force reveal the answer to her. That was not the way. She needed to pull back, not shove forward, let the Force give her what it willed in its own time.
I mean, this book is endlessly quotable. I feel like there were so many beautiful pieces of writing.
Yeah, but that in and of itself it's respecting the Force as its own entity, and it is trying to talk to you, and you just have to shut up and listen. And I love adding this, because this is how it has always worked. This is how it has always been given to us, always. And people on the dark side are always trying to have a stranglehold over the Force and force it to do what you wanted, but to have it really placed into context of why there's this weird thought that like, oh yes, balance in the Force is having no Jedi and no Sith. You're like, no. It's to not bend it to your will. If you're listening to it and viewing it as your companion, it is your ally, and not something that's subservient to you. That does not mess with the balance of the Force, and you can help to protect it. And that's what the Jedi were supposed to do, and it's exactly what the Sith do not do and are unwilling to do. And I loved having that really like put out in the forefront.
Yeah, but I also want to let you continue on to the next part, the crux of this part, which is the Tabana bomb that's about to slam into the sun to create this massive chemical reaction that's going to result in billions of lives. And just start off the conversation with like seeing the force feat that is occurring, what it takes, and further, like, we get more fallen Jedi and not in the fallen that we know,
Yeah, I mean, with this Tabana bomb, first is the way that they discovered it. Is the Force is trying to warn them that this is going to happen because it's omnipresent. Time is not relevant to the Force, and it errs on the side of life. Death is not the opposite, darkness is not the opposite, but it'll err on the side of life and balance. And what was happening is threatened that balance. And Avar Kriss kept noticing there's something missing. And when she notices this, oh yeah, don't worry about that. It's just a thing. It's gonna hit the sun. It'll be gone. No worries. Yeah. You're like, yeah, we might want to investigate. Oh yeah, it's like a bomb. Is a problem with this? Yeah, it's just type R sun, so it'll react in a way that'll just kill everyone instantly.
As as happens, just casually.
Yeah, I think Misa thinking Misa addressing this. And so like that moment was powerful in and of itself, but you also got to see how self-sacrificing the Jedi of this era are. Of this is what we signed up for, and it's something that I, living in America, there's a lot of negative connotations for the people that are enforcing law and stuff like that, and that doesn't necessarily have to permeate all of our fantasy genres, and this is one of the rare cases where we see they're like, yeah, we are going to do everything it takes to prevent this from happening. Yes, we know this is happening. We could probably evacuate ourselves. We could just jump to hyperspace. And anyone that knows of this happening, they're gone too. No, that's not the Jedi way. That's not what Jedi do. And their discovery and addressing of this is beautiful because they fulfill what they signed up for. But yeah, I mean, your guys' thoughts on this, the Tabana crisis? Sorry, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like when we started this section of the talk about, I brought up, we got to see this togetherness of the Jedi, and we don't see a lot of that in, some of the other canon that we already had, and it was just a very powerful moment, I think, to have Avar, in this field, listening to the Song of the Force and telling everyone, like, we can do this, and like, and they weren't really sure they could do it. They were just kind of like, can we do this? And in the process, we lost so many of the Jedi, and but that didn't stop them. They did it again because and I think this was just like you said, Choco. We've known that this is what the Jedi represent or are supposed to, or we know that this is what the Force is, but we don't see that a lot. And so as we as humans would not do the same. If we lost a fellow soldier, we'd be devastated, and that would affect our performance. They were just able, this is the Force's will. We have to do this. If we can't do this, all of these billions and billions of people are gonna die, and maybe we'll fail, but we have to still try. And I think that was one of the most beautiful displays of the Force and of what the Jedi were capable of that I think we've seen in canon so far. That sums up my thoughts there.
Yeah, totally. And what Choco was saying earlier about like the parallels of like the Jedi being like, space cops, law enforcement. I think there is this tendency to see them, because we are so used to seeing them in the prequels era as like militant executors of the Senate, the Galactic Senate's will. And since we know that the Senate is corrupt and infiltrated by the Sith, it makes it like a double betrayal, I think, for us, because like we see them doing these things and we see Anakin being corrupted, and it's difficult to kind of reconcile that with the idea that they're supposed to be peacekeepers, and especially when they describe themselves as peacekeepers, even in the prequels, when we see that to be fundamentally untrue. And this was just such a beautiful depiction of like what it really is to be this Jedi, like all-encompassing force for the greater good, and just doing what you can to make a difference for better in the galaxy. I also think that the way that the Force is used in this book is really important to me personally. I think that we see so many people, so many arguments and so much discourse in the fandom of, who's quantifiably the strongest, canonically the strongest Jedi, who's the best and who's the greatest. And the Force is not a weapon to be wielded. It's not, some measurable form of ability or greatness. It's a force that if you open yourself up to it, you can do great and unimaginable things. The point is letting yourself be its vessel, and this book, we see time and time again Jedi going up against things that they've never done before, that they have no reason to assume they can do, but having that attitude and that outlook of, like Sawyer said, like we at least have to try. If we don't try, then what are we here for? And I think I see a lot of parallels to like The Last Jedi Luke and Rey Skywalker. In this book, because of the way that they use the Force, because of the lessons that Luke learned, and the way that Rey grew up and the way that her training went, where it's, we see people saying there's no way she should be able to do that, or no one's ever seen anybody do that before. And this book is just task after task after task that the Jedi themselves are like, I don't know if this is gonna work, but yes. I have to say, hey, Force, work through me and let's see what we can make happen, and I think that's one of the things that I love the most about this book, and what I'm looking forward to so much about this era of stories is that interpretation of the Force, because what we have seen so much has been, I think, diluted, and people see it as something that's not, and it's really cool to see it in the form that it was like meant to be in.
That's such a great point too. It also recontextualizes Luke in The Last Jedi, because this is one of the moments that made me cry. After Avar Kriss, does her monologue asking her friends for help and realizing that no one had left and they were all in with her, I was like, and even Yoda, this from the book, even Yoda, wherever he was with his little crew of younglings, his great wise mind sang its own part of the chorus. Heartbreakingly beautiful, a voice of pure light belying his physical appearance. Not this crude matter, indeed. But it also made me cry because it, like in what I said about it recontextualizing Luke, is that people were the task at hand of moving the Tabana bomb was so monumental that different people joining Avar Kriss's network were giving everything they had fainting and even dying. And it recontextualizes the feat that Luke does when he projects across the galaxy to Crate, and him dying in the end from that feat. And it's just like, you know, if you read Legends, you're kind of there's this small amount of power creep that happens, or power fantasy, where things just happen, and you reach these god level abilities, and there's no recourse, you know. But in this little world that we're starting with the High Republic, there's very much consequence to exerting yourself fully. Like, you cannot be a god in this. In Star Wars, it's just not a thing that happens.
I mean, I think it sets up beautifully the space western vibe. Even more so, I think, even like The Mandalorian always gets credit for being a space western, but this book, I do think that the tendency for characters to die even further solidifies the space western thing, because it's the Wild West, and anything, it's unpredictable and anything can happen. And the first act of this book is just so compelling. I just love it. Okay,
so let's move on to part 2, The Paths. This is where we are introduced to the Nile. And we are introduced to Marchion Ro, the Eye, and this huge organization of brutish Mad Max Fury marauders who take what they want, do what they want, and kill everyone that's in their way. And Sawyer, I want to get your thoughts on Marchion Ro, because we've talked about it briefly, me, Chaco, and you, and some others who have read this book. Marchion Ro, who starts off the one way and ends in another.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, because I had seen like some of your commentary, like non-spoiler commentary about how you really like the Nile, and I was sitting there, you know, it took me quite a while to be into it. I was like, these guys are just a bunch of bozos, and they think they're all that, but they're not. And then, like, how are these people gonna attack the Jedi? I was not into it. I was like, I did not think these guys, especially Lorna D, can't stand her. Marchion Ro was not, you know, even when we got, you know, a little bit deeper into what his true intentions were, it really wasn't until the end of the book that I was like, yeah, okay, this is a villain. Like, this is a villain I can get behind. This is a villain that is a true threat to the Jedi. But for a while, you know, I expected him, you know, in his intro where they first started off with the Tempests, and they're these big, powerful, you know, warriors. And then they go to him, you know, there's, you know, below the 3, you know, chairs is this one guy with, you know, who's very intimidating looking. I thought right off the bat, he was going to be this, like, really powerful, really scary guy, which he turns out to be. But for a while, it's just like, oh, you know, I'm just following the rules that my father put in place, and I don't really do anything. I just get money. And, like, I don't know, like, I really was underwhelmed at first, because, you know, I going into the High Republic, knowing that the enemy was not going to be the Sith, I was already wondering, like, what have they come up with to become a true threat to both the Republic and the Jedi. And I was pleasantly surprised at the end that it ended up being a much bigger threat than I thought. But yeah, no, the first few times that we meet these characters, I was not intimidated. Particularly, like I said, with Lorna D, I just, you know, she was just, oof. Something about that girl. I just, and why am I forgetting his name?
Lorna D makes great cookies. You buy them at the grocery store.
I love those cookies, by the way.
So addictive.
It made so much sense that was her name. Like, you know, and she named the ship after herself, and like, no. What is his name? Kassav? Is that
Kassav? Yeah.
Yeah. He also, you know, rubbed me the wrong way in a completely different, you know, I did appreciate that all 3 Tempests had a completely different vibe, and goal. You know, the whole thing about the Nile was pretty much every man for himself, except, you know, everybody gets a share. But I think those characters we were supposed to dislike, but yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed the evolution of the Nile, because at first it was just this big rowdy crew of greedy, marauders. So yeah, no. So the second act, meh. The third act, oh, okay.
1,000%.
Yeah, he was like he came out of the gate as this sniveling little weasel, and you're like, who is, because they kept talking about this is a villain that's different than anything we've seen in Star Wars before. You're like, okay, whatever. Like I've read a lot of Star Wars books, and I doubt it. I know all the archetypes or whatever, and then they did it. It was like, oh God, yeah, I'm dumb.
Really good.
My bad. No, Markion Ro, he comes into this second section, and obviously we're gonna get to where he ends up in the third section. But as this legacy, I'm not doing this for myself. This is just what my dad told me to do. Like, I don't even know why I'm here. When they set up this role as the eye, which you're like, oh, is that like the top level? No, it was not intended to be the top level. And the introduction of these people, like they call them space Vikings, which I was like, okay, I feel like this is going to be a little on the nose or whatever. Like, it's not going to be great, but basically, especially what we got from what they told us before the launch of Pirates of the Caribbean and things like that really ruined pirates for us, because we feel like pirates are like these good-natured beings. These are not them, and they delivered on that. They are not. I love Hondo. I would watch a Hondo show up and down. I want RDJ to play Hondo, not Thrawn. If you're listening, I feel like he could pull off a Hondo.
Would the first episode of a Hondo show be called the Hondo Prelude?
It would have his name in it for sure. For sure.
Did that dad joke just go over?
No. Listen, I had a 2000 Civic Si that was supercharged with jack and race and supercharger. Yeah, no, it didn't go over my head. I know what you're talking about, H22, but
pulling out chassis codes. Okay.
No, his introduction was phenomenal for what he became, and it was like a flower that blossoms, and you're like, oh, that turns into that. It's like a Digimon evolution.
I was just gonna say it reminds me of Magikarp. Because you're like, this fucking guy.
Yes.
You level him up. You just gotta wait. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
a little French.
That was no. No, I mean, it was like, I guess I kind of figured like, okay, we're gonna find out what his intentions are eventually. But by the end of the book, I was like, okay, I don't think I know anything about this guy. I don't know anything about this guy. Like, completely, I really, for me, it was like they were two completely different people. Or one person who was almost non-existent because he was just kind of like there. And then this other person, I think the Magikarp analogy was really good, actually. That happens.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna find out when we get to part 3, but his evolution is definitely one where you do find out his motivations to a degree, but in so doing, it raises more questions than we got answers for. So like, his personality, when we get there, we're gonna talk about it, but just in general, it still remains a mystery, very sordid and very ambiguous. But of course, as it's revealed through the introduction of the Santeca clan, when they're investigating the hyperlanes, he has Mari Santeca, who is part of the family that has charted out these hyperlanes, and something happened to her. She has these gifts of navigation, and that's who provides March Yunro with the paths. And I want to start with Megan to kind of talk about Avar and Elzar's investigation into the Santeca clan, or what caused the Legacy Run disaster, and just everything that was revealed throughout that arc.
As much as I love the formatting of this book, I can't wait to see more of Avar and Elzar together. Like, their dynamic is amazing. I love them both so much, and I love them together. Their investigation of the Santeca clan was really cool. I think Elzar is so much more akin to the modern Jedi that we know. And he's got, I think his outlook is a little bit different than the Jedi that we see so far. Definitely different from Avar. I love his self-awareness in terms of using things like the mind touch. I mean, I love that he knows that it's like a trick, kind of duplicitous, but he also is like, I know it's duplicitous, but still maybe we should use it. I think that they've got a great dynamic, and they keep themselves in check. I know that you guys know a lot about, I know that the Santeca clan ties in a little bit to existing lore, but I don't know a ton about that. But I just found it super interesting. I love this hierarchy. I mean, I gotta say, I'm here for the camp. Even the Nihil, I was fine with them being a bunch of bumbling Viking clans. I'm a Firefly fan, so I was yeah, okay, let's do this, But this book just kept me guessing and kept the surprises coming, and scenes like this were really where I felt like they put in so much nuance and so much depth to the characters, even though we get to spend so little relative time with each character. And this investigation really gives you a feel for Avar and Elzar's personalities and how they're different and how they work together. And I love it.
I mean, this whole time I'm watching, Avar and Elzar, and anytime Elzar is mentioned, I think of Futurama, and I feel like his lightsaber hilt has to be a spice weasel. I think that has to be a thing. Someone needs to draw that up. But I'm also watching them together, and I'm like, two best friends, are they gonna kiss?
Are we about to kiss right now?
It's definitely shipping them.
Yeah, that's a right behind the Jedi Vector. That's the best ship in this whole thing. But having their interactions, and then talking to the Santeca clan, which, if you saw The Force Awakens, the place that they got the map to the first Jedi temple where Luke Skywalker was hiding out, they got that from Lore Santeca. And then if you read the Rise of Kylo Ren comics, Luke and Lore Santeca travel to a lot of places together in order to uncover these old artifacts and things. And it just it was a tie-in that just made beautiful sense, because it's not like, oh, we just threw someone's name in there so that you would know. It's this is probably how he knew these exotic and random places that no one else did, is because he's coming from this specific family. But I love the meeting with the family and seeing the differences between them, and also the morality of the Jedi, where Elzar's they're hiding something. We should basically use the Force and brute force this out of them. And Avar is no, we shouldn't, because it doesn't necessarily mean that they're holding back anything negative. They're giving us everything that we want. They're cooperating with us. They're going to loan us a bunch of droids. They're going to use their time and money to help us. And this is their business. We can't just force the secrets of their business out. And so even though they could tell they were holding something back, it wasn't an automatic, my mind was just just rip the information out, Jack Bauer, just full on, Jack Bauer shooting in the kneecap. Yeah. that's not ethical. That's not good. That's not what a Jedi should do. And the fact that my mind went there is an indication of something with the later Jedi. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
I was so happy that they mentioned Veracino and they went there because that's my Animal Crossing island name, which I picked because when I got the game, I was like, well, it has to be Star Wars, but I don't want people to like come to the island and know that it's going to be Star Wars. Like they have to be a real fan to know what it is. But no, I mean, in the discussion, Elsa being like, oh, maybe I could like retire here someday, and like, there's something going on there, but the first thing about the Santagas that struck me off the bat was that it was two men, which it was great to see that representation, right away. Subtle, but I was really happy that was there. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm thinking back on it and what we end up learning about the Legacy Run disaster and the information that the Santagas did not offer up, I really don't think that if they had, or if Elzar had used a mind trick, that it would have ended up differently for Jedi in the Republic. I don't know that would have changed much. Just do it! But I don't think the story would have changed much either way. But yeah, I definitely, they still helped. If it weren't for them, they would have, we wouldn't have got Kevin Tarr's plan to work and all that. But yeah, no, it was a really interesting connection to things we already had in canon. And I'm very much look forward to seeing what, why Mari Santaga is with the Nihil and what that relationship is, and do the Santaga clan know way more than they let on about that? I guess we'll find out in the next book, but yeah.
The fact that all of this is weaving through how hyperspace works and how people travel through it and how they think about it and consider it is fascinating, because it also leads me to a lot of predictions and theories that we'll get to later in here. And then their connection with Kevin Tarr's array going forward is really cool, and that also made me really happy.
Yeah, so they have to calculate, or they have to make this navigational array that's, the algorithm is there to guess where all of the emergencies are going to happen with the Legacy Run disaster. And just really quickly, Avar and Elzar, as if they couldn't have been shipped even more, they made it rain.
Well, that's one of the coolest feats.
The rain is awesome.
Having the Jedi be able to lift up the hot air, and it gave me Naruto vibes from Sasuke when he did the Chirin attack, where he used his flames to make a bunch of heat, which rose, and then he can use a straight lightning attack. And it's beyond an ability, it's understanding the natural order of things and nature and things itself, which is just so freaking cool. We've never seen Elzar. I feel like I keep speaking in random short bursts, but we see each and every Jedi has their own special gifts. They have their own interpretation of the Force. They have their own strengths and weaknesses, and Elzar's has it been done before? No, but it kind of makes sense, and I love that. I love that so much. He is a Jedi MacGyver, and it's another thing I'm here for. It's one of the reasons that I think he is one of the coolest Jedi that we get to meet on this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I loved it so much. I put it in a video I'm going to post in a half hour.
Jedi Rain?
Yeah, but I didn't know what to call it. So if you want to call me out on that later, I was just I don't know if there's a name for this, but I thought it was cool.
I would bucket it in with Force Storm.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want to say that and have every opportunity for someone to correct me. But no, I thought
Jedi Rain. Some say dry others feel the pain. Jedi Rain. I Soft that old chestnut.
I mean, I'd stream it.
I mean, we've seen battle meditation before in Legends, but just this idea of playing in the Force, or playing with the Force in ways that we have not seen before, and these Jedi have not seen before either. They don't even, that question of, is this gonna work? I don't know, but let's try. I just, that was another moment where I was just like, wow, like, I just think we learned so much about the Force, even if it seems like we already knew this stuff. It was a great, like, turning point, at least for me, in my understanding of the Force. And so, I mean, I thought that was just incredible, like, because we've, and I'm sure that gatekeepers are going to have something to say about it, because, it didn't exist before. But no, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was the coolest thing.
I actually think it was a dig at gatekeepers, to be honest. Recontextualize the exploration and experimentation of the Force, with some...
I hope so, but I don't know if they'll take it that way.
One can only hope, with so many people saying this shouldn't be possible, or we haven't seen it before. I feel like...
It's funny what they selectively choose is acceptable and realistic. Like, up until a certain point, it was, well, George Lucas says, and then it's like, oh, well, this is the way it was in Legends, and it's now nobody cares at all what the canon is in the sequels, because they just don't care at all. Like, it's funny to me that the same people who would be like, you just don't get it about something in the past, don't care to explain to you or understand it themselves, because they're like, oh, well, I don't like that explanation, so I'm going to pretend that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there'll be plenty of that about this reign too. But I loved it. I thought it was so emotional. It was so beautiful.
Absolutely. And then we have really quickly the Blythe family rescue, which goes straight into part 3 and the revelation of Marchion Ro. This was just, so I want to start off with your thoughts on this arc, Megan, but really quickly I just wanted to say Porter Engle just cooking up stews, and when someone's in danger, bring out the blade of Bardata. But go off. Porter
was amazing. I am obsessed with all of the characters in this book, and this scene in particular was so much fun in terms of like a Wild West rescue, say that 3 times fast, and the dynamic between the Padawan and the Jedi, and the excitement of the chase scene. I mean, literally, like, I was just having a blast. Like, I was also like at the edge of my seat, because it's very tense, and like the Nihil actually really turn out in terms of like scariness, I think, at this part. Like, I feel like I had the assumption when they showed up, like, oh, the Jedi are going to handle it. Because like we talked about earlier, the Nihil kind of seem like a bumbling bunch of idiots. And you're like, well, they've messed it up this far. Like, the Jedi are going to get there, and the Jedi are going to save the day for sure. But they actually, they built up the stakes really, really well, and the tension really well. But God, I mean, all of the Jedi, I just can't get over how calm they were. Like, Porter taking out those guys, just like fully taking them out, and being so cool and calm and collected about it, but also just like so impressive. And then when the guys got the jump on him, and him just being like, well, like almost like chuckling to himself, like, well, that was dumb of me. Well, I had a good run. Like, I'll, and then when he gets saved, he's like, oh, I really thought I was gonna die. I really did. Wow. What a turn of events. Like, it was such a, like, I love the way that these characters in this book is written. Like, the style is so much fun, and this scene was everything that is so much fun about it.
I imagine a duel. Imagine a duel where they're fighting, and it's a close duel, and then at the very end, he gets one parry off, and then the one guy that got parried, he's like, "Well, you got me. Strike me down."
Reminds me of that TikTok audio that's like, "Oh ho ho, naughty naughty." Like, he's just like, "Okay, all right, yep." You're better.
Okay, so this part really painted how terrifying the Nile are, because like we see they're kind of painted as these idiots who are just trying to get drunk and get high and stuff. And then on this family, they go full on Mad Max Fury Road on it, and you can picture them out playing guitar and stuff like that. They're coming. There's a big cloud of it because they come in a cloud of poison. Like they are not for the faint of heart. And the family calls for help, and the operator for their security company or whatever is like, "Oh, who's coming after you?" And they're like, it's the Nile. And he's like, "Oh, that's bad."
Bye.
Good luck. Like, listen, they pay me minimum wage here. I'm not able to. Let me talk to my manager real quick. We have what we call acceptable losses. So
I kind of imagine like a mall cop being called for the invasion of China. Like China's invading, and then you call the mall cop, and he's like, "I don't have a gun."
I don't know what you're talking about. I think Paul Blart would definitely try his best to help.
Try.
I have this stick. All right, let's go. And so yeah, they're like, I don't think we're getting any help. But then there's a call placed to the Jedi, and you're like, okay, at least that guy called someone to help, this family, and we spring into action. Also, what was the Jedi like? It's not a vector, but it's a vector with wheels. That ship also, yeah, it seems super cool. And having a Charhound is just really cool.
I want a Charhound.
And I want to make some sort of dish with 9 eggs from different species. There's a lot that left me wanting more with this, but it did leave you with a true sense of terror for the Nile.
Earlier in the chapter 2 with when Marcion Rowe meets Mari, that was some heavy stuff. Like, that's the first glimpse that I saw of Marcion, where I was like, this guy is a psychopath. This guy is terrifying.
Yeah.
He definitely, yeah, you got to see the very first like bit of cracks into this facade of whimperingness that you were introduced to. But before we jump into that, though, I gotta hear Sawyer's thoughts on this whole family and the rescue and facing off against these mines and stuff. Yeah.
I loved this part, and I loved Porter. He was great, definitely one of my favorite characters from this, and his attitude and his expertise, his knowledge. Like, I want to know more about, like, who was he, what did he do in his life? We gotta, first of all, we gotta give credit to the Blythe family, because they put up a good fight before they got captured. They took out a large chunk of the Nile before they evidently ended up getting captured. But I really loved, I can't remember the name of the planet, but I really loved learning about the planet. And I've kind of always found myself wondering, like, what goes on at a temple that is not Coruscant, so that was kind of an interesting peek into that part of, like, Jedi culture. I guess I didn't experience that. Yes, it was scary, but I didn't really, it wasn't until part 3 where I really became frightful of the Nihil, at least me personally. But and the ground, the vehicles, that was really cool as well, and they kept it up with that. And the Charhound, loved her.
Also, how badass were those horses, horse creatures?
Yeah. Oh my god, I was so mad when
the thunderous crackling hooves.
Yeah. I'm so mad when Porter's got shut down, but and just seeing more of Loden's character, that's when we see the most of him, and Belle as well. But just getting to see how he handles the situation, because up until that point we've seen mostly how Avar handles a crisis, or is like the helm of a scenario like that. So yeah, I mean, I think I was a little frustrated. I get why we kind of, one chapter was about that and one chapter was about them, trying to figure out what happened, and one chapter was about the Nile specifically. Like, I just wanted that to be one block of time so I could get the whole story, but ultimately there was a reason that it didn't go that way because everything ended up intertwining. But yeah, no, it was one of my favorite parts of the book for sure.
It turned out Loden was correct, because Bell learned how to fall because he was falling from such a great height. He had like 30 minutes to commute. And when he finally did it, he landed successfully. And then Loden facing down, it was like, did you expect me to come out with a laser sword and face down the entire First Order? Loden faced down a starship by himself. Like, we've only just seen Jedi deflect blaster bolts. I want to see Loden in a movie deflecting a starship like turbo laser or something. I know they didn't have turbo lasers back then, but deflecting a starship blaster is or starship gun is heavy, man. Heavy stuff.
It's not for the faint of heart. But yeah, I mean, your point on Bell, like, I was almost expecting to hear something from the Postal Service because it was from such great heights that I'm sorry.
But
I'm living for these little references. Killing it. Just killing the game.
But no, we got to see a lot of just really cool Jedi stuff of this frontier, and I need frontier stories. You know what I mean? It's just like a handful of Jedi. They are so far from Coruscant. It's not like they're asking for backup. They have to figure out and solve these problems on their own, and it's like
a handful of Jedi on a leaky boat are gonna save the world.
It's like Young Guns, but Jedi, which is what I need in my life for
That's a deep cut.
For any. I mean, they regulate any stealing of his property, but you gotta be handy with the steel, earn your keep. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this chapter because, as you said, also we also got to see Marchion Ro, which might become my favorite Star Wars villain, and he's whipping through hyperspace, and we find out how he's able to do this fully, and in doing so, we start to see the cracks of his sanity, like this facade that he's wearing over, which is really interesting because this whole time, all of them are wearing these masks. It's not till the end that he takes off his mask, and that's when he's standing up in front of all of them. But we start to see the guy under the mask. It's incredible. I'm curious of your guys' thoughts on it. Megan, what do you think?
Marchion I'm obsessed with Marchion. I'm not gonna lie. I had just made a video semi-recently about wanting like more variety in Star Wars villains, and Marchion Ro is my all-time favorite like villain archetype. I love this like sleeper agent, like, bait and switch type thing. And with Marchion, it was just sold so well because you're almost kind of annoyed with him at the beginning. Like, as bumbling and kind of over the top as the Nihil seem at first, Marchion is still the one that you're like, this guy's gonna die. Like, they're gonna get rid of him just like they did his father. He seems kind of annoying. And this scene with Mari Santeca, I was taken aback. Like, literally, it's Mari Santeca has been in captivity with his family for, apparently, it seems like Marchion's entire life, and it seems like their relationship is at least somewhat familial. Like, I feel like maybe Marchion's father had set up this dynamic, because Marchion goes through the motions, and he's very resentful of the life that his father set up, and the way that he is forced to interact with people, and the bargains that his father struck, and the fact that he's like living in his father's shadow. But it felt like me in this scene, like he wanted to be outright aggressive and abusive to Mari Santeca, and he was only holding himself back because of this like illusion of civility that he felt like he had to maintain, even though he holds he doesn't hold all of the cards, but he has her life in his hands. So I guess that they've got to work together on some level, but she didn't seem to have any kind of quid pro quo for him really at all. But yeah, just to hear the way that he interacted with her in this kind of like forced civility, and then hear his thoughts, like kind of murderous, like I should just kill her. Like I hate her. It was very disturbing, and in a way that really made me like this villain. I don't like him, but I love villains that are like this far gone, and you're like, whoa, what is he capable of? I don't know, because he's really terrifying. It's a far cry from like Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, just being like, ugh, I'll never be as cool as my grandpa Vader, like.
It definitely puts him outside of the realm of redemption, for sure. Yes. And firmly inside the realm of elder abuse.
For sure.
Especially since the book sets up that it's not ageist, right? Because Porter is very capable for his age.
I feel like I should let it be known that I do not condone elder abuse. for all people listening.
Disclaimer text.
And that's why I was trying to figure out the best analogy for someone else, and the thing I keep coming back to is Moriarty, specifically in the BBC Sherlock, where he's introduced as dating the mortician that has a crush on Sherlock, and then you find out, oh no, he's been organizing a lot of this stuff to begin with, and this was all to throw you off. That was part of his mask. And
analogy,
watching him, just like you see that he's actually quite emotional, but views every person in his life as a tool, as a pawn, as something to be bartered, negotiated, used, or whatever. And he's trying to maintain some level of civility with with Mari Santeca, and he's barely able to contain it, but he's like, I can't, she needs to be alive as long as possible. It's crazy. And how they kind of like unfurled this flower of a villain is just beautiful to me. But I'm curious, Sawyer, what are your thoughts on this part?
I think it definitely, like, I don't want to say it took me by surprise, because I knew something like dark had to happen. It just had to. We were getting kind of bad, but kind of, just inconvenient more so. And so, it was very almost relieving to find out that really this guy is bad news, and he's validating everyone's opinion of the Nile. Like, yeah, we don't need them. They're just kind of, loser, pirate, rambunctious, getting high all the time people, and I'm using them. So don't worry, I've got it. I'm the one controlling it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely would not say he is the scariest villain, at least maybe in canon. I'm still kind of reeling from Vitiate in terms of like all of Star Wars. Like, that was the I think for me personally, that's the most terrifying Star Wars villain. But yeah, no, definitely in canon. I mean,
Vitiate is a tough ruler to start with. I mean, that's not. Yeah, that was not even remotely relevant anymore. But that was the first time that I was genuinely terrified of a Star Wars character.
was learning about him. So, yeah, I mean, and I don't think that there's a path. You know, most of the villains we have in Star Wars do find a way back to, you know, the light side, or, you know, get redeemed in some way. And I definitely don't think that we're going to see that with Marchion. But yeah, no, I mean, he did quite the quick turnaround there. And, you know, at the very end of the book, like, he made himself known as a really big threat. And I still don't think we know exactly what his plan is, but, you know, he's definitely nobody to mess around with, and I have a lot of questions about his past and, you know, what is the real, like, what is he capable of? I don't think we've seen the full extent of it at all.
No, absolutely. His turn comes at the cost of even his own people, and the best thing about this transformation is that we get all of these subtle reveals, you know, with the Battle of Kerr, with Kassav losing his entire storm because he was set up, you know. Marchion Ro, you know, it was a ruse to him this whole time to be this naive legacy carrier who was only doing things because his father did it, and now the responsibility fell onto him. And then, you know, you figure out, and this is a Chaco point, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. You figure out he too, apart from, you know, planning Kassav's downfall, he too was the one that called the Jedi and told them about the Blythe family and set up this entire thing that caused Loden Greatstorm to fall into captivity. And that, especially if you listen to the audiobook, I know, like, not everybody does that, but, like, especially if you listen to it, like, his monologue on the Great Hall when he takes off his mask and he's just, you know, espousing the truth of the matter and using Kassav's downfall as sort of like a martyr almost. Even I was to some degree, like, motivated by his speech, and I was just like, yeah. Scarily enough, you know.
He's charismatic. He really turned it around.
Mark Thompson's tonal, like, decision for that is incredible, and I won't accept any other voice in live action.
I mean, that part, it broke my heart. He's like, I recognize your voice, and this whole time, because of the timing of it, you thought that whatever operator they called to decided to call the Jedi to save them. Mm-hmm. And you were wrong this whole time. That was Marchion Ro, and he wanted the Jedi. He needed a Jedi, so he allowed them to do this mission, and then call the Jedi on them so that and you think back, and it's the same voice. You know, if you did the audiobook, it's the same. He uses the same exact voice, and you just didn't notice it because you didn't want to. I don't know. It's beautiful and crazy, and, you know, when he sets up, you know, Kassav's forces, and prior to that, you know, he's like, I think you're the one that killed my father. I can't prove it, but that's how I feel.
Headcanon.
So, yeah, you killing my father is part of my headcanon, so I'm just going to operate on that. And then, in true fashion of viewing everyone and everything as a pawn to his ultimate plan, he leaves them out to dry, contacts the entire fleet, gives them help that isn't going to save them, and then goes back to everyone who survives and uses that to motivate them to be subservient to him. It's crazy, it's diabolical, but it's beautiful at the same time. It's nuts.
And the fact that, like, Lorna D and what's his face, the other's Tempest, are, like, visibly shaken and scared of him at the end. It's like at the beginning you're like, oh, we're gonna kill him like his father, and, you know, but now they were shaking in their boots, you know.
They should be.
Yeah. And then, of course, with Loden's capture, we find out that he has a sordid mystery, or a sordid past. It's very mysterious. He's got a lot of experience with the Jedi, resisting their abilities. His family, we don't know. We found out that he's been a mastermind, and he's been doing this ruse the entire time, covering up the fact that he caused the Legacy Run to begin with, the Legacy Run disaster. But even with the revelation of how scary, cunning, and ruthless he is, you still don't know him. And that prospect really excites me, because we're going into the dark in February. And I think in March or July, we're going to Rising Storm. And I think this is a true trilogy of books. I really do. I think we're not going to see much of Marchion's true nature until these other books are released. And that's really fantastic. Sawyer, do we have any thoughts on like Marchion's past, revealing his involvement with Jedi and the Purple Rod? If you have any theories about that.
I mean, honestly, my first thought when all of this was like, when he was like revealing everything, every single thing, like it was even kind of, we had all been led to assume that even though the Nihil were the big bad, the Legacy Run was an accident. It wasn't. So I think when he said, or when the book said that wasn't even his real name, like my first thought was like, is he a poser? Like I don't know. Nobody's, he never takes off his mask, so maybe he's this completely other guy that we have no idea about. No, I mean, I have no idea what the Purple Rod thing is. And he, it says that he, his like grandmother or whatever, like this is way, way back that his family has dealt with the Jedi. So I'm not even sure that the Jedi know, what went on between his family and I don't know that I have an answer to that. I think there's a part of me that thinks because this era is so new, it's kind of hard to draw any conclusions, especially when we're talking about things that happened before this book, which is, this is the earliest we have. So I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss, but I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, there's just okay. So in that whole thing where he's like, "You don't even know my real name," I was just thinking of Robert California from The Office. Just like, you want to start a street fight with me? Bring it on. You're gonna be surprised by how ugly it gets. You don't even know my real name. I'm the effing Lizard King, and you're like, what? So like, I was. Those are the vibes I was channeling during that part. But oh my god, there was just like
Marchion Nuriodo.
Well, it leaves so much, because we know from the regular universe how difficult it is to travel into past deep space because of the chaos there. And is he the one that caused the chaos? Like this chain reaction of supernovas that have made it really difficult to travel inside of this space. We also know that the Chiss Ascendancy have what are called Skywalkers. They use third sense in order to travel, and that's the only way you can really make these light speed jumps, because no one else can navigate these pathways. Is that ability similar to what Mari gained when she was younger? How did the Sith Wayfinder get created, or is this going to be related to wherever Mari went, or how she gained that ability? What the hell is this Purple Rod? I need to know. My current theory is that it's a grape flavored Otter Pop. But Yeah,
Symbols of death all over it.
I was partial to Sir Isaac Lime myself, but there was a purple one. I don't remember who it was. There's so many interesting thoughts and things that can come from this, and how they are really using hyperspace to explore this, which is really untouched territory and fascinating, and has deep implications for Rise of Skywalker, but all the way going backward, and with the Santekka clan, and having Kevin be working on the same issue but from the opposite side with the Santekka clan, and how are they going to fit into this? We know that their relationship with the Jedi is going to be really good. How did Marchion Ro know all this stuff about the Jedi, know how to use a bunch of people in torment to create a Jedi cage? There's so many questions, but there's even more implications, and I'm excited to see how this all shakes out. But Sawyer, what are your thoughts?
I mean, you know me, I have no friggin' idea what any of these like deep lore things could possibly be. I mean, I think your grape otter pop theory is just as likely as anything else. But I mean, the way that the end of this book played out, it just really sealed the deal on this being one of my favorite Star Wars books I've read so far. Marchion's reveal, like, I'm obsessed with villains. Like, I love villains, and Marchion's reveal is one of the greatest villain reveals, like one of the ones that shocked me the most, because the way that this book builds him up, like, at first you're like, this guy, not impressed, and then you start realizing, okay, yeah, respectable. But I certainly did not see, oh yeah, I masterminded the entire disaster. Also, you're trying to use a Jedi mind trick on me. Like, I loved seeing that in his mind, how he described the Jedi mind trick, like washing over his brain and like resisting it, being like, yeah, I have a history with the Jedi. Even when the Jedi mind trick, the Jedi force push was used on him and he got back up, like, that entire dynamic between him and Loden was just, it was chilling. Like, honestly, it gave me like Hannibal Lecter vibes. Like, he seriously was like, you don't know me. I know way more about you than you know of me. That the reveal of I was the one on the speaker, the reveal of I orchestrated this whole thing. I honestly, like, I haven't been that surprised by a villain reveal in a really long time. It was refreshingly terrifying. Like, I loved it so much.
Can I also get you to talk about what happened with the final captive from the family, the Black family?
Oh yeah. No, that scene where they like start off the scene by describing all of the destruction, all of the bodies and like the lightsaber marks and the scorches. Cold-blooded, that last scene. I mean, literally just again with this is one of the most, and that's the thing, it's like a lot of the other, we don't know his motivations, but a lot of the other big Star Wars villains, like somebody hurt them, they're like out for vengeance, or they hate the Jedi or whatever it is. And he's got this past that we don't know, but I think no matter what we find out about his past, it's clear that he is a psychopath. Like, it's not, no matter what his motivations are, I highly doubt that they're going to be, like he's upset because the Jedi killed his family or whatever. Like, we know that his father was murdered by the Nihil, but I don't think it's going to be some tormented past history. I think even if his history is drenched in blood, his motivations are to spread chaos, to further his own personal gain, and he's just a psychopath. Like, literally, the amount of times we see him just callously just murder, toss people aside, it's very, I really think that he has a potential to be just like a very, very menacing, huge figure in the Star Wars like villain canon. Like, I think he's he's the next level. I'm really excited to see where he goes with it, because
I'm gonna need to make some sort of Venn diagram with Moriarty, with the actor Cillian Murphy from like Jedi, and like
yes,
and it's gotta have Hannibal Lecter in there, and then Ben Stiller, specifically from from Happy Gilmore. when the old people are like, his grandma wants to tell him about the abuse, and he's like on the phone. It's like somewhere in all of those. But if there's a live action, Cillian Murphy has to do it. I love him.
I see that, actually.
Yeah, he could definitely sell like the wimpy, like forced into it kid at the beginning, and he could definitely sell terrifying psychopath later.
The Starlight Beacon was activated. Everyone was there. Even Yoda was there. Everyone was around for the inauguration of the Starlight Beacon. And, you know, of course, the book wasn't going to end with a happy ending. There was a vision. Elzar's vision.
Whew. I mean, we did succeed. We got the Starlight Beacon. It's so aptly named. It's the beacon of light in the galaxy. This is also going to serve as a relay so that they can communicate more freely. There's going to be Jedi there so that you can get help easily. And this is just a wonderful place where you can go in there. And the inside of the Starlight Beacon is Florida's Epcot Center. For some reason, where you can try cuisine and stuff like that from all over the galaxy. And
Biospheres.
Yeah, the way that the biosphere is really talked about leads both Element and I to believe, for a near certainty, that this is actually in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, and that's where Snoke is hiding out in that biosphere. But that's a topic for a different day and for different predictions. But yeah, we get this vision of what is to come, and it's not good. And this whole book is just a roller coaster of like, yeah, we're the Jedi, but terrible things are happening. But yeah, we were saving people, and then but denial. But they're not really that great. But they're led by something that's terrible, and like we keep going up and down, and we think we've had this problem solved roughly at the expense of a loading Greatstorm, but this vision happens, and it is of loss, it is of darkness, it's of death. And it leads me to believe that it is in reference to the name escapes me again, but there are big plant dark side monsters
Drangar
that are coming, called the Drangar, and they are not to be messed with. They are not people. You can't reason with a plant. You know what I mean? Like if you have a big giant Venus flytrap capable of eating a human, and you tell it not to, it's not going to listen to you. But they're going to be full of dark side energy, and we should find out a lot more about them in the upcoming book written by Claudia Gray, Into the Darkness, which I'm so excited about. But what did you guys think of this vision and how it ended? I'll go to Sawyer first.
It was very Tony Stark at the end of, was it Civil War, I think, when he sees everyone, all of his friends dying, you know, to prelude Infinity War. It definitely had similarities to that. But what struck me, you know, in particular was it wasn't just a vision, you know. He fell to his knees and he had blood gushing from his nose because it was like such a powerful, like, I don't know if that was just because of how, you know, mentally excruciating it was for him to see, or, you know, something else. I don't know, like that, you know, that kind of solidified typically we think of Force visions as something that, happen in dreams, or, not in a sudden moment like that where he sees everyone he knows and loves. Well, not loves, he's a Jedi, but it all came crashing down at once, and he didn't really get any information. He just got, we're all gonna die. Something is going to kill every single one of us, and I can't. It doesn't matter if he tells someone that he has no idea what he can do to, stop it, but he knew at least for certain that this was not just a random thought, it was certainly, it was a preview of what's to come, and I, part of me thinks that, even as evil and sinister as Marchion has turned out to be, that is not something he can rain down on the Jedi alone. So I think we need that backstory of him and his relationship with the Jedi, and what that purple rod is, like what are those things gonna be that leads us to this absolute devastation? And then does that devastation have something to do with why the Jedi Order is not what it is in this book, as we know it, as we've known it, I don't know. It was certainly, especially because that scene started out so happily, we got just a tiny bit more of Ava and Elzar, but of course it had to end, with a bang, just like it started, but whew. We were so close,
we were so close to ending on that. Look, are they gonna maybe a kiss, maybe a little touch of the hand? I don't know, but then no, of course not. No, and I don't think. I mean, this is just not looking good for the longevity of the Jedi. And we do know that 200 years from now, the Jedi look very different than they do now. So I think that there is a lot of stuff that they've clearly got to set up to happen. I'm really interested to know what Marchion's plans with Loden are, because I think it's intentional that he took him as prisoner, and it seemed like capturing a Jedi was a big part of his plan. And I'm very curious to know what he's capable of, because it reminds me of Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian. Why does he want someone who's Force sensitive? What is he capable of? What involvement is he gonna have in bringing about this massacre of Jedi? And I think it's very possible that it's related to Loden's captivity and Marchion's plans for him. But I also thank Darth Chaco for the nightmare fuel that is Sith Venus flytraps, because I'm not going to get that out of my brain anytime soon. So
a gardener you will not be.
And if you fight them, you go full on Fantasia, and you chop them in half, and then those halves grow legs, and you're like, God damn it! There's two. This is getting out of hand. And so
the Mario flowers. That'll make me less scared.
We get to see that the Jedi in a very, very different place. But the biggest difference is their relationship with the Republic. In this, they were separate, but equal, and they were this, they were comrades. In the prequels, they were a tool for the Republic, and I'm curious because we have 200 years to play with, and so I'm curious of your guys' thoughts of A, how does that relationship evolve and change, and B, we also have a show coming out called The Acolyte. And we've been told that this exists at the tail end of the High Republic. It's going to be a dark side show. And so I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts of how this works out. And I'm going to go to Megan first, if you have any thoughts. I don't have any myself, so that's why I'm asking.
So I think that it's very possible that it's a misdirect. but the central character of this book was Marchion Ro, and he's got a history with the Jedi. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't seem to be force sensitive, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, I don't know what he's got in the works, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed a big player and remained like a big bad. It could just be a trilogy of like his rise and fall, but I feel like he's going to be a central figure in this initial trilogy, and I would love it if they expanded him into like an unexpected, like major big bad. But in terms of getting from the High Republic to our like modern era Clone Wars era Jedi, I think it's probably going to be about consolidating power. I think if they go through this mass extinction event for the Jedi where tons of people don't make it and it's horrible, then I feel like it would be only natural for the Jedi to say, well, we will gain and give protection by aligning ourselves with the government. And I think that it will be very possible. I think that's how you see power structures form a lot. But I also think that like we by the time we see the Jedi, like the Sith they've already got their tendrils and everything. So I'm very curious to see what role the Sith play in getting the Jedi to that spot where they're essentially a weapon for the corrupt Senate to wield, because it seems like they had significant influence. It seems like, at least the way that Sidious already has a significant power even before he was Chancellor. So yeah, I think that there's so many ways that they could go that tie into like the world that we know and love, but I don't think any of them are bad options. I think that they've got their ducks in a row, and I am excited to see how they quack. I don't know what ducks do.
Quack.
Well, don't ever Google what ducks do, because it's horrifying. Ducks are
bad.
Are one vowel away from what they truly are. But
they eat cockroaches. And that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Someone's got to do it. I don't want them in my house. If they can eat them, they're right.
Sure. No, but so sorry. I'm curious on your thoughts on this and how we're gonna bridge this gap.
I mean, after you asked that question, I was sat here thinking about it. Like, I don't know. Like, there was a lot of different ways I wanted to answer that question. But now that I'm thinking, I guess, thinking about the prequels, thinking about the Clone Wars, like, well, start with the Phantom Menace. The Jedi did not know that the Sith were back. They did not. So that makes me think that the Acolyte takes place where doesn't have anything to do with the Jedi Order at all, because it can. It's a Sith show, and if that's true, if they did not realize, except for, of course, Palpatine, I don't know how much. It's possible that Marchion, depending on his fate at the end of this trilogy, is tied in, but I don't think that we're gonna, see anything from the Jedi necessarily, and I don't, I wanted to, when you first asked well, go ahead.
Well, would you mind if I tossed in a slight monkey wrench? Is in the Phantom Menace, Mace Windu and Yoda, basically Pep and I are briefly consult, and there's always two there are, a master and the apprentice. They haven't directly faced them in a long time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are completely unaware of their presence, or that they are around and that they're doing stuff. So, and also at some point in time, they had to have learned about the rule of two, and certain other things. And by the way, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just want to point that there's seeds that there's something in between this and that, and I am very much interested in what that is, because like we said, the Acolyte is a dark side show. Hopefully, I say hopefully, I'm not sure if I mean hopefully, but I would like to see one of these Jedi, we keep jumping perspectives. I'm sure we're going to continue to do so in further books. But maybe we see one jump and fall to the dark side and learn stuff they probably shouldn't learn and run into people that they would probably be better suited off not running into. I think we have some amazing things that we could potentially cross and end up with another not another Anakin situation. I hope it's like in Ahsoka, but worst case scenario. That's what I'm hoping of season 7. Sorry, go ahead.
Like if Avar were to turn, like the best
Jesus,
of them,
please no.
like a Harvey Dent. You were the best of us. I would love that. Oh my god.
I would love that too.
I would love it, but I would hate it.
I never even considered that one particular, but like my mind went to like, what if someone who, my mind went to the Trials of the Jedi, Trials of Light, Trials of Darkness. What was it? The other book that came out?
Test of Courage.
Test of Courage. Oh my goodness.
We're close.
But having someone that is perceived to be like, oh, up and coming, super powerful, having them fail and not being able to recover from it might be really cool. Or,
you're picturing Vernestra or Imri?
I'm picturing Vernestra. There's a lot of ground that we can play around with and like show how the best of intentions can end up in the worst of results. I'm curious if I don't mean to cut you off, but do you have any thoughts on if you were telling a story, what you might want to see?
You guys are aware that I'm very fond of the Sith, and because Legends were never really canon, but because all of those stories about the Sith aren't canon, they have a bit of room to make stuff up. We know of the rule of 2, but I'm very curious to see what they come up with. I think I would. I don't know that I would like Avar to be the one that becomes a Sith, but I think it would be interesting instead if one of the lesser talked about Jedis in this trilogy is the one, who ends up, falling to the dark side, or if it's multiple, because obviously there's got to be some kind of catalyst for that to happen. And I don't know, a mass genocide of Jedi is a pretty good place to start. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited that the female's going to be, or the lead's going to be female. I just think that Disney does have a little bit of wiggle room to be really creative here, and because of that, I don't really want to sit here and say like what I would want, because I'm really curious to see where they take it. This is kind of a bold thing to say, but I after The Mandalorian and after, the things that we've kind of been fed already, I kind of trust them, and I kind of just want to be surprised. So that's where I'm at there. If I
had my way, if I were writing this, I would make Marchion Ro a big bad. I definitely would. I love the Sith, but I love the idea of this like massive villain being not a Force sensitive person, especially since he's such a good planner. Like literally he saw like 12 steps ahead of everyone and orchestrated them perfectly and played everybody perfectly. And I love the idea of the Acolyte being a dark side story. That is one of the Jedi that we know turning to the dark, especially if it's somebody who is the best of them, someone who's very unexpected, who you wouldn't even like, as much as I say like, wow, it would be so cool to see Avar turn. I can't even imagine how they would do that. Like they would have to pull some stuff off to get me to believe it. And I'm sure they could, but I love those kinds of twists. Because I do feel like so much of Star Wars is like people finding their way back to the light, and people being, which, it's hopeful. It's a hopeful story, but the world is not that shiny a lot of the time. And I would love to see kind of the opposite of like someone who is pulled so strongly to the light, but they have like intense motivations for going to the dark.
It'll be we'll get our Ava and Elsa love story, and they'll both fall to the dark side because they gave into their emotion.
Perfect.
Oh dear.
Perfect.
Well, you said that it's not that shiny, but maybe in the vein of Mad Max Fury Road, they can be shiny and chrome, and fall into this trap. And the person I want, okay, so I want Vern to be the one that falls. That's what I want, and I want the catalyst of this to be Bell. I think Bell does everything he can to save his master, and in the end,
Yeah.
Wouldn't
ends
that
up
make sense for it
captured.
to be Emery because it's her new Padawan?
Emery, it wouldn't make sense, but Emery is too obvious of a choice.
Sometimes it's gotta be obvious, man. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm thinking Belle, as the project being female led, and she is a prodigy among the Jedi, and also Mary Allen's just get it done. Actually no, it can't be her because we can't have every Mary Allen be a dick. we can't have both Burris.
Well, I
And
was
her master.
thinking about the precedents that we have for the Fallen, at least going back as far as we are going, right? I think Loden is going to fall because of the torture, and he's not the acolyte, but he falls, and he's like Marchion's puppet, and
Like
just
Professor Chaos, Professor Enigma.
yeah. Marchion basically just in the same vein that he's controlling Mari. Like, he tortures Loden to a point where Loden becomes subservient to him and is his, like, token force user. And he wants to train up an acolyte. But, of course, he's not force sensitive. So Loden Greatstorm is the one that trains the acolyte. So Loden falls, but he's not the one that is the acolyte. He falls and trains the acolyte, and it could be because you said Bell is trying to save his master. It could be that that's how Vernestra becomes involved. Yeah, I think I would love if Avar turned, and I would also hate it because she's just like a golden star. She's the gold trim that I always refer to.
She is the starlight beacon,
Yeah.
which is why it would be so horrible.
I think we need more. I mean, I think, at least for me, when I think of like what the Jedi that in, the prequels and the Skywalker saga that represents the Jedi values the most, I would say would be Obi-Wan. And I think we need more characters like that represent what a Jedi is supposed to be. So I think for me, it would just seem like, I agree with you, Element. I just think it would be disappointing to see them go that direction.
Yeah, but it would also be very
specifically.
It would also be very, very, like, if they could work at it, or like if they could sell it, it would be very, very satisfactory too, or like satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be really cool for someone like that, but at the end of the day, I need a hero.
I need a hero.
I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night. They've got to be strong, and they've got to be fast, and they've got to be fresh from the fight.
Absolutely.
I need a hero.
Avar's pretty fresh from the fight too.
I can't wait to see Yoda make an actual appearance. I'm really excited about that. I think that there's so many characters that are going to be so awesome, and I can't wait to see more of these, like, so like esteemed and honorable Jedi, like, together. I think that'll be all the light that I need.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the direction this whole campaign for the High Republic is going. We have a book next month, a book the next month, and then comics for the next 2-3 months, and then subsequent issues all throughout the year. the High Republic is going to just be one big machine. And we're all for it. But we are running out of time. Just briefly, if you would, Megan, give us or start us off with some closing remarks, and again, remind people where they can find you. And yeah.
This book is fantastic. If you haven't read any Star Wars, if you haven't read the book and you're here, I'm sorry that we spoiled everything for you. But
you have done that yourself.
I love this so much. I cannot wait to see what's going. And I am Jay Stoobs, and I make 60-second videos on TikTok. So come check them out if you want to hear. They can be a little ranty sometimes, but I try to lock it down. But yeah, that's me. This book's awesome. I love it.
I want to put, Megan, parentheses, ranty but eloquent. That's like, yeah, that's the thing. And how about you, Sawyer? And also, I just want to toss in there that it's been such a great conversation. Next month, we're getting a new book. If you guys would like to come back for the next book and we do this again, we are for it. I will leave it up to you. But Sawyer, where can we find you and your just amazing self?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for letting me come and do this with you. I told you I could do the book. I did it. And I'm so glad that I had that motivator, because I think kind of in the middle there it got a little slow, and I gotta finish. And I'm so glad that I had this motivator, because I'm so, it was just such a great experience to read this book, and everyone should do it, should take the chance, should absolutely pick this up. Or listen to the audiobooks, you can get the great soundtrack that I've heard about. But anyway, I am Sawyerism on TikTok and Instagram, but mostly on TikTok. I am trying to get into doing the lore stuff, not nearly as efficient at it as you two, but I'll get there eventually. But I have been doing a lot of really weird science related videos, and I'm very much looking forward to doing a series on hyperspace soon because of this book. But yeah, no, that's what I do. Yeah, follow me if you like to hear about herp biology. I've got a lot more I could talk about there.
Please follow her. She's great.
Absolutely. These are two great creators on TikTok. Definitely follow them. I would like to say, Megan, probably Darth Ranty Eloquence is your dark side name.
I'll take it.
And for sure you have like some amazing science, you come at it from a very interesting angle, Sawyer. So definitely follow these guys. But Chaco, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, there's this really interesting Star Wars podcast. I've not heard it yet, but it's called Star Wars. And it will be debuting soon. And so if you are someone that follows the one-of-a-kind Sawyer here, you'll find out all about it. I'm excited to start listening to it, but we love and support all of our Star Wars ladies, and you guys are carrying the community. It's awesome. If we can support, we will. And thank you for being willing to come on and talk to us geeks.
Thank you for having us.
This is seriously so much fun. I get such a kick out of it. Thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks again for coming on and joining us for this conversation, especially you guys at home who are listening or watching. We are out of time, and that is the end, and on to the next one. May the Force be with you. We are all the Republic, for light and life.